The what button?
The live button, which I believe should mean we are live now. If I can squeeze enough
Ah,
space.
lovely.
Can't wait till I build that freaking booth.
Someday, my son,
Someday.
someday.
Someday. Damn it. Remember, if you ever commit to some project or whatever, see it through. Don't be like me.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome everybody to Gab Hominem, another episode of talking with people who work somewhere in the entertainment field realm rather. And this week is going to be a fun one because we have a artist slash animator joining us. No, actually, I need to have this settled once and for all. I've actually heard your name pronounced multiple ways. Morgane. It looks like it's spelled Morgane, but how is it actually pronounced?
It's Morgan. The E is silent.
Okay.
It's literally says that on my birth certificate, but a lot of people just call it either Morgan. Surprisingly, a lot of people call me Megan, and that's become a name I have despised because of that.
What? What the Megan?
Yeah, just Megan for some odd reason. So
Jesus.
I have been called that more than I have been called my actual name.
Oh man.
But yeah, just Morgan. The E is silent. So
Okay. Well, either way. Either way, Jesus, what the hell is wrong? Okay. But yes, we have Morgan joining us this week to talk about art, to talk about animation, the things that are basically directly involved with it. I think there's going to be a lot to learn about this. So welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time for this.
oh, thank you so much for inviting me here. This is really exciting for me.
Sorry, room gets cold, room gets hot, so I need to drink something cold here. So, your work, I believe I remember seeing it your name was attached to a couple of interesting little indie projects. Like, yes, I think Hasbin was one of the things, but at this point, I'm kind of like not worried about who gets attached to that project because I've already talked with enough people and I don't want to be directly associated with that.
You are correct on that. I used to be a cleanup artist on Hasbin Hotel, and through that, I'm now a cleanup artist on Mayhem that was started by Magpie Raven, who also was a part of Hasbin Hotel, too.
Yeah, she was a background artist, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, she was a background artist, and she still is on the new Helluva stuff, too, which is great. So I'm so happy for her.
Oh, yeah.
And she's being director on the Mayhem stuff, and she's a wonderful director, too.
I would imagine, because I've seen at least a couple of the Mayhem animations, especially the pilot, which for me was very, very cool to look at because it felt very like 80s cartoon vibe. I think that was by design.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Thank you.
It was.
And
It
the
was a
cool
lot of
part,
fun.
yeah, and the really cool part is that she did all the backgrounds to traditionally, which is so freaking amazing.
Oh, that's right.
Still
She
doing
does
that.
do traditional, huh?
Yeah,
Jesus.
she's amazing.
At this point, I don't know how many people actually do traditional art anymore. I've seen one artist I follow on Twitter does it occasionally just to, try to keep her skills on it. But I otherwise don't see a lot of people actually doing it nowadays.
Yeah, you don't really see a lot of people doing it, but it still is actually a thing, surprisingly. Like, you may not know this, but there's actually some shows that I can't know the names of right now, but they still have traditional backgrounds in them. Ghibli is definitely one of them, especially when it came to, what was that? Dang it, names! What was that one film when he was, where was that film about that pilot maker, the pilot engineer?
Oh, I know what you're. Oh crap! I know what movie you're talking about. I don't remember the name of it either.
Google, save us. All right, let's see.
The Wind Rises.
Yeah, The Wind Rises. Yeah, that has traditional backgrounds in that too. And same also with Secret World of Ariadne when Marnie was there, and many others. So traditional art is still a big, huge part inside animation itself too. Digital, it is easier to do so because you have some effects and such. But surprisingly, you also still need to require a lot of the different tool sets that traditional needs as well.
Yeah, I still remember a conversation I had with a friend of mine when we talked about the anime Ghost in the Shell.
Mhm.
And he apparently wasn't much of a fan of the standalone Complex series because it was digital. Like, yeah, he recognizes that it looks a lot cleaner, it looks a lot like smoother and all that, but he still prefers the hand-drawn animation that the original Ghost in the Shell movie had. Which I kind of get. If people have that kind of preference, I can see why. I guess it's just up to a matter of taste on that in that regard.
Yeah. See, that's where I'm kind of agreeing, but also disagreeing with him too. Because when he was looking at the anime, when it comes to anime, because in Japan, the industry do not treat their animators that well, so if it was a bit more clean and such, and there wasn't much movement, it's because they didn't have a choice, because they needed to get it out there as soon as possible. With Ghost in the Shell, they had a bit more freedom, and even if it looked more smooth with the hand-drawn with the films itself, it still required the same type of tools that even the show itself. Hell, even a lot of Disney films are still hand-drawn animated, too, surprisingly. No, I'm not kidding. They're still traditionally hand-drawn.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Because I remember, if I remember correctly, Lilo and Stitch had a lot of, like, watercolor backgrounds.
Yeah, watercolor backgrounds and then effects. Those effects were actually done by a different type of group of animators called effects animators. Unfortunately, not all animators know the same type of animation skill. Like, some are really good at drawing people, some are really good at drawing animals and animating them and having them go. Some are really good at drawing effects, and when it comes to effects and making it look amazing and fantastic, that's what we desperately need, are those effects animators. And most of the time, they're also understated, too, for animators, which sucks a lot, because they do so much magic. So much awesome, amazing magic.
There's a lot of, like, really amazing things that are pulled up that you would not usually think would be possible in some projects. Like, I remember the interview I had with Jun Yoon a while back was with my co-host, Aiden, who couldn't make it this week. We actually talked about sound designers and how, you know, a lot of their work does so much for a base voice recording. And one thing that my co-host Aiden decided to what am I looking for? One way he decided to describe that was basically saying that sound designers are like magicians, basically, because they're able to do so many things to make just some very base level recording. Here's the lines that we need. We got the delivery we want. And then just the voice by itself wouldn't exactly sound all that exciting. But then you add those little slight touches to it, and it just sounds so perfect for the environment, as well as all the sound effects and all that. But then I start to think about how, I guess, like, when it comes to the Has-Been example, I noticed there was a lot of animators on that pilot.
Oh yeah, lots and lots of animators. A lot of the people that I know today and are through that pilot itself, and it's amazing. Through that show, I've met Kennedy. Kennedy is a wonderful sound effects artist that I know that you interviewed on here. So, Crystal is how I met them. Elsie, Magpie, of course, and of course many others of the crew that has been that are now also part of the Spindlehorse crew too.
Yeah, for me, it's just astounding the sheer like size, just how much manpower goes into making an animation, even of like just 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of sweat, blood, and tears that go into animation itself.
Now, can you like give us an example of what kind of things are like really fit that description? Because you don't hear a lot of like stories behind it. Like, obviously I don't want to look for specifics in case of NDA things, but like anything that can really give an idea of what like the daily grind is for an animator working on a project, even of 10 minutes, 15, let alone the 30-minute pilot that Has-Been was.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna put this in a simple and a joke ways. Do you like sleep?
Yes.
Don't be an animator.
Okay.
Don't be an animator because with Husband Hotel, yes, it was a 30-minute one, and when I started cleaning up on it, it was about 2 years pre when it first premiered and everything else too. Because animation itself, there's actually a huge pipeline when it gets into a show that even a pilot or even a series itself. Do you know what a pipeline is?
I know I've heard the term before. I don't actually know what it is.
Okay, so a pipeline, a lot of shows itself, even live action still uses, is what helps us keep on track when we're making a show or story. There actually was a really good one that was on Twitter, and I'm going to credit the source to it too, because major PMS always credit your artists for the pictures because they like it and they respect you for it. So respect your artists too, please.
Oh, that reminds me. I completely forgot to set on. There we go.
All right, let me see if I can find it. I know it's here. Aha! Got it. Yeah, this is an easy-to-digest infographic about animation pipelines that was made for middle school, and I'm going to copy the link and share it onto your Discord. That was made by Chai B. So Chai B did this for a middle school display, and it explains really well how the animation pipeline goes. And there was also a video that was made by Sam Riegel. Sam Riegel, who, of course, everyone knows is either not from Critical Role and is a famous voice actor, and through that entire crew, a whole animated show is being made, and the animators and artists on there are being paid well, thank God, because it's through Titmouse. And he also explained well how the pipeline goes, but basically what I showed on the Discord is that basically the pipeline shows the creation all the way to the making and to the final product of the show/story. You start with an idea, and then with that idea, you got to make a pitch Bible into it. And if that pitch Bible goes really well, you got to get approval. Then you got to get into script and writing story. You can't go into the art yet because you got to write down the story. The story is always the major ground and footing that you need, especially if you want a good show and cartoon. So, by the way, also respect your writers, especially cartoon writers.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I did get to talk with Dave, and there was a little bit talked about in terms of writing, but it was more about like the process. I also got to talk with a few people from the Lackadaisy crew, and Fable was actually pretty descriptive with how just a couple of the different animation processes works out. Man, my tongue will someday cooperate with me.
Okay, I have the same problem too. What are words?
But yeah, I've learned quite a bit about animation lately from a couple of people that I've talked with, and it's when it comes to writers, I've seen a couple people, go on and talk about things. Dave was, kind of helpful in talking about it a little bit, but otherwise, I don't really hear much from writers when it comes to like anything, animations, games, whatever the case.
Yeah, which is sad because writers also help out a lot with animation. Star versus the Forces of Evil creator was a writer first and foremost. She was never an artist, and they were always a writer. And through that, they were able to get other artists, and thankfully we got Star versus the Forces of Evil. But then, right after writing in the pipeline, you then have storyboarding, and there's actually two different types of storyboarding, so I'll tell you the difference between this storyboarding and the next one coming up. So after the storyboarding process is done, we then go into the storyboard pitch, where it shows bit by bit what's happening. And it's like, you ever seen those pictures where it's with all those notes and boards on a wall? It's like that. That is definitely an SB pitch, a storyboard pitch.
Okay.
Yeah, and then goes into Animatic. And then with Animatic, it depends on each production company or production of the show. That either you could do a recording and then Animatic, or you could do an Animatic and then animating and doing everything else and then recording. But if that happens, that might jingle up because voice actors also have their different ideas of how to do a character itself too. Yeah. But on this pipeline here that I'm showing you by Chai B, it's doing Animatic and recording. And then the next type of storyboarding that I'm about to show you is notes and revisions. So the first storyboarding, it's kind of like more like the thumbs and the key camera movement of where you want to begin within the story itself. It's like it's their first thumbnail in a sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with this one, you have to show it to a group of people, so you have to clean it up as best as you can. After the storyboard pitch, the animatic, and the recording, if possible, if that production company does do it that way, then it gets into notes and revisions, whereas if they do notes, they fix up what was inside the storyboarding, And then people called storyboard revisionists then draw over it in order to match it with the animatic and the notes itself too.
Okay.
Yeah, so the storyboarding itself process is a long time, which at best can go in between 6 months to a year, depending. And then afterwards, you gotta conform, which is combining all together the recording animatic and the storyboard revision.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Now, like I said, production companies are different, but on this pipeline that Chibi is showing, it's showing the conformity and then design process. I think that perhaps on the has been one that there was designs first and then the animatic and storyboarding right before it started onto the production, which is the animation and everything else too. So the stages of production and revisions and notes, it's a going back and forth thing because you're taking care of that, and then once you're done with that shot, you then get feedback from different people of the crew, or in this case, the art director and animation director, or whoever is the head of the production crew at that time. And then once they give you the back notes, then you go back and you take care of what has been written and what needs to be fixed, and then you do it over and over again until it's done. And then cleanup artists also are part of the production as well because they are inking over the rough animation, but the thing is with cleanup is that while you're inking over it, it's a picture multiple times, but you gotta make sure that the picture literally connects. One thing a lot of cleanup artists first struggle with is that they don't realize that with the rough, the rough itself is taking care of the posture and how the character slash... I'm just going to make up a word and saying entity. Yes, entity is moving. And then with cleanup artists, once they get to their job is to take care of the clean lines, the colors, and making sure that the character slash entity is as concise as the design is possible. And to make sure that there is no jankiness inside the animation itself, too. Like no jankiness, making sure it's as smooth as possible. Like, for example, you're a cleanup artist and you're taking care of roughs, and some of the frames jump over because they didn't have a chance to, so you also have to take care of in-betweens as well. In-betweens are frames that are put in between frames, quote-unquote, that help connect in together the movement along with the line and color, too. You with me so far, or did I lose you?
Sort of. It's a
lot. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
It sounds like one of those things that you tend to like pick up on the beat and the rhythm of just the more you get into it. Like,
yeah,
it
definitely.
Sounds like a lot to explain, but once you start actually doing it, it'll just click.
Yeah. That's actually an interesting thing that you also bring up too, because experience actually helps out a lot of artists learn more of their crafts and tools and stuff. Whenever you hear people saying about going to art school, they actually... I'm not dissing any art schools per se, but they actually don't learn anything in art school until they get into the production. Then they start learning because they're experiencing it firsthand and realizing what their mistakes and what they can improve and grow on too. Yeah. I never went to art school, and because of that, I always was scared that would be a big obstacle or a wall for me trying to break into the industry. And trying to get into areas like Cartoon Network, Disney, all that, because some studios do require you to have a degree for art school and stuff, which is dumb at times, but it is required. Some do. Fortunately, it's not being that big because we're also realizing that art school is being really expensive, college is being really expensive. Most of us don't want to go into debt. And I was so thankful that I was chosen for Has Been Hotel, because Has Been Hotel was literally helped me get into the industry and know all these people, and to also help me experience and learn through the production and everything else too.
Right.
That same experience and learning I am still doing because you never stop.
Yeah, I remember. I think I remember Viv, and I don't remember if it was Ashley's podcast or somewhere else in a Q&A she did. But I remember she once told people that you don't necessarily have to go to some big college to do art or animation or whatever. The main benefit you get from going to, any kind of school for that stuff is networking, just meeting people and making connections.
Yeah.
And I believe it. I absolutely believe that is the case for art schooling, especially nowadays with with just how easy a lot of the information is to access. That gives you the ability to go and do these kind of things. Like, I'm by no means an artist, at least not right now, because I just got started myself.
Oh shit! I just realized that stream was on the screen share, and I did not do anything. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all right. I did manage to share the link to the Chibi's Twitter status that you were talking about.
Yeah, I just realized, like, oh, nope.
But yeah, I don't go to school for any art. In fact, I'm full-time, working labor right now, and any of my skill in doing art is mainly watching other people draw and what the processes are, and then having a few people in this other podcast group I'm in. All of them do art except for myself, and they're just willing to throw me some, tips and ideas and other things to work with to get me on there. It's still going to take me some time to, get somewhere where I feel it's good, but, it's mainly just meeting people and just making those connections with them. It's, basically just being a person.
Yeah, and honestly, you also are you're working a full-time job, and that's honestly the same thing that a lot of artists are still going through right now. When I started on Hazbin Hotel, I was a deli clerk at Bond's, and I was working there full-time on night shift. So, and then I switched over. Yeah, night shift. To me, it's okay because people from the city, they're like,
it's okay.
I do love my friend.
It is okay because, in my experience at least, the two night shift jobs that I've ever had, by the way, I should say, they've usually been crews of people who are just really, like, kind of chill. They just get the job done without being, completely stressed about it. I mean, hell, there was one job that I had working at night that, for lunch break, somebody just ran down the street to the liquor store, got a 36-pack of Tecate, and we all, drank in the back where there was no cameras.
Nice.
Night shift crews tend to be pretty chill. The only downside I see to night shift is there's nothing for you to do because you're only, you're never around when everybody's out partying.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. So either that or your sleep gets fucked up too. So
yeah. I've kind of screwed my own sleep in the last couple of weeks because of all the things that I've been trying to keep up with. But I'm starting to realize I should probably do this, all of this stuff one at a time. Yeah.
But yeah, what you're going through right now, full-time job wise, that's also the same thing a lot of artists also go through as well. Mm-hmm. Like for me, I went through deli clerk and then I was a dishwasher. Right now, I'm going to start up on a job soon at a really awesome store that I wanted to in my hometown ever since I was a teenager. But I also know that it's temporary because I'm still focusing on trying to break big into the industry and getting all my own stories to come to life too. And honestly, a lot of artists, they also went through some pretty big hardships too before landing their big dream job as well. So
I definitely believe it. Like when Dave was being a writer for Hazbin, he apparently had jobs working for DoorDash. I think I don't remember if he was working for some deli place while he was in LA, but
he was a butcher. So he was a butcher back in Louisiana, and then he had a job there too. So
I remember that part. But yeah, when he mentioned that he was driving around for DoorDash, I'm like, I do DoorDash too. That is, for me, first of all, it's DoorDash. Delivering for any of those kind of services is always such a pain because it used to be somewhat reliable as like a side job, but then suddenly it just became like, is this really worth it? I'm burning about as much gas, and you guys kind of reduced the rates, so that's the point. But then the other part that gets me is just doing any motor vehicle operation whatsoever at all in LA, period.
Yeah, because it's LA.
Yeah,
I know
because
what
it's
you
LA.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to LA a couple times. It's always been a nightmare to drive around in.
Oh yeah, that is no exaggeration. That always has been.
Yeah.
Always has been.
But yeah, it's nowadays, because I live in Sacramento, where Dave and all of them are living right now, is actually only an hour away from where I'm at.
Nice.
But talking about like hometowns and all that, I guess that'll be one of the first questions that I really like make a standard question for any guest that I have is just where are you from and what kind of experiences have you had, from the places that you've been raised in that kind of contributed to where you're at now.
So originally, and where I'm living at right now, I'm in a town of Estes Park, Colorado, which is right next to the Rocky Mountain National Park.
Hmm.
And yes, tourist season is becoming a big thing now. But when I was younger, I also went to other states and areas like Georgia, Arizona, California, of course, in my later teens.
Mhm.
But anywhere that my mom was taking me and my little brother with, because I'm also high functioning autistic,
Hmm.
and I was really bad when I was younger, and both my mom and dad divorced when I was really young too, along with my brother. And she's the one that took care of us at a really early age. Yeah, yeah. When I was younger, I wouldn't be able to talk at all. Now I can, barely, in a sense.
I've, for me, it's you talk about being high functioning autistic. We've a couple of my friends have actually had a suspicion that I might myself be somewhere on the autistic spectrum, and that's mainly because of a few signs that have shown. It's just not quite as obvious in me, but they've noticed a few things like I'm constantly going into detail about things when those details were never asked for. Hyper focused on one thing when we're all doing something else. There's a few things that go on, but the only reason I've never had any official diagnosis is because by the time any of these signs started showing, I was already in my early 20s. And
Actually, you might be surprised at this, but a lot of adults don't find out they're autistic once they reach adulthood.
huh,
I have a lot of friends of mine who actually find out they're autistic at a later age. I was one of the few lucky people, and my mom cared a lot about me and my brother at that time to figure out if we were autistic or not at such a young age. But a lot of autistic adults and such don't find out they're autistic until they're literally at grown-uphood and stuff. And
huh.
you know what? There's nothing really wrong about being autistic
No,
either. There's not.
not at all. It's
Everyone has their differences with it, I will admit that. And everyone has their own opinions onto it as well, too. So, but for me, I am very proud of it. And yeah, I do have my problems with it too, but I consider myself proud. And there's also a lot of animators and artists out there too that are autistic or on the spectrum.
I can believe it.
Yeah.
Because it's not like it makes you like unable to comprehend things. It's the way I've been able to chalk it up to is the way an autistic person processes some information or an event is just a little bit different from how people who aren't on the spectrum would.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. So,
But yeah, it's the one time I tried to call some autism like specialist center or whatever the place is kind of would be called. In my old hometown where I was still living at the time, they told me that I was apparently like too old for any of the like main diagnosis, any of the main tests kind of things.
oh, yeah, no. No, you're never too old.
I'll have to take a look around for places that are in Sacramento then and see if I can figure that out.
Yeah. If you want to try to find a regional center, because regional center do help out people with disabilities and needs per se,
Hmm.
or psychologists too. That also always helps out as well.
I may eventually have to find a psychologist because there's things, there's old baggage from my old days that I
Oh
gotta
yeah,
jump onto.
yeah,
I can tell you one thing. You can make mistakes when you're a teenager, and it doesn't just get chalked up to teenage stupidity. There are regrets you can have as a teenager that will stick with you well into adulthood.
oh yeah, definitely.
Um, but yeah, that being said, Um, it's been an interesting journey from that point up to this, because a lot of the things that happened between then and now, I would never have expected to have happened. Like, I would never have expected myself to have gotten into, like, heavy metal when I started high school. But then I met a couple people, and now Metallica is basically my all-time favorite band. After I moved to Sacramento, I never expected to be so like supportive of the independent creator and artist communities. But then after Has-Been finally worms its way into my world, mainly because I'm the type of person of like, this keeps showing up on my recommended list. I'm tired of it. And then there was one day I got bored and finally watched it. I'm like, okay, fine. And then I got into it.
Yeah.
Don't knock it till you try it, apparently. But after that, I joined the fan community, and that's where I met a lot of the people that I'm friends with now, specifically this other podcast group. And now I've gone and followed, I think, at least 100 independent artists all over Twitter, which is all its own community right there.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I have not looked at, I don't remember if I even have a DeviantArt account or not. That would have mainly...
I still have mine, but I have not used it in forever.
Yeah,
so.
I mainly would have only had mine just to follow people. But like I said, I don't remember if I even had one or not. There was also Tumblr, but I've stopped using that.
Yeah.
There's places all over for a lot of different things. And one thing I found is that, like, the voiceover community, which the voiceover is the main thing that I've gotten into, it's a lot of fun. And I call it the biggest little world that I've ever discovered, because it may seem like there's a lot of different voice actors when you start looking around. But then you actually get into it and you realize, oh, wow, all of these people actually know each other. And then it comes to the artist community, and a lot of voiceover artists are actually, they like to follow a lot of different artists, is one of the other things that I noticed.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Voice actors and artists have a really tight bond, because artists are the ones creating the characters and the story itself, but the voice actors help us lend the voice that help make that to life.
I still remember there was some old animatics that Viv had done of Angel Dust using clips from some Steve Buscemi movie.
Yeah, definitely. Steve Buscemi, that was when he was in The Wedding Singer with Adam Sandler as head cast. And she was using that as what she thought Angel's voice would sound like too. And fortunately, Michael did a really fucking fantastic job able to do that, so.
That guy definitely has his own energy.
Oh yeah.
The best way I can
He's amazing. He's amazing. He's awesome. He is an entity that no one can understand, and he's amazing.
After I talked with Newt from the Lackadaisy server, he showed me a video that was taken, I think, after the Has-Been premiere, where they apparently went to a Denny's, I think, and Michael decided to just drink maple syrup right out of the jar.
Yeah, nope. Yep, that was the thing. It was either a Denny's or an IHOP, because I think I was there. I think so.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I was there at the Has-Been Hotel premiere. A lot of the cast and crew were, which were amazing!
Well, that's one thing I wanted to ask is, was that something that was kind of like the theater was reserved specifically for the cast and crew, or was it kind of just like the cast and crew were invited, but it was still like more or less open to the public?
Cast and crew were invited, and you could also bring that one extra person too if you wanted to.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing it's one of those deals of like one of those small community theaters that people can rent out for a showing or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and through that, I was able to meet a lot of my friends that I'm really good friends with. I was able to meet Melissa, who I'm giving a shout out to. Love you, girl. So. And a lot of the cast and crew I was able to meet there too, which are all amazing. Most of them I actually met at the Too Loud Season 2 premiere, the one made by Nico Callio. Because a lot of the animators and cleanup artists were also part of that show as well, too.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, Viv was a part of it. She was a voice actor for one of the characters. And Reggie was a part of it, along with being a part of Ollie and Scoops, too. Ashley was a part of it, of course, I believe.
She's gotten around to doing animation on a few different projects, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, including Lackadaisy, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Saw that part. It's always interesting to see where all these people tend to go to in terms of all these different projects. Like she did Long Gone Gulch, which I hadn't heard of, and
Oh,
thought
actually, did that?
apparently, if I remember correctly, she was
I don't
somewhere on
think
the crew.
so. Long Gone Gulch was definitely an indie animated film, but I'm not sure if she was a part of that. She would have been able to tell us. Yeah, I'm not sure. So
Excuse me.
I'm not sure, but you are right on that, and that's one of the big things a lot of people still need to realize is that with Hazbin Hotel, yes, it was my big foot into the door, and it's something a lot of people are gonna remember me, Viv, the cast and crew by too, but it's not what our lives revolve around as well. Because we also want to focus on other things too. Like with Ashley, she's now doing the Far-Fetched along with Dave. Dave, of course, was a writer on Hazbin Hotel. I am now part of Magpie's production of Mayhem and still am. We're working on a special episode right now, so. And but a lot of people still want to get us to that because that's how they know us. But there's also a certain type of people that think they can go through the door into the industry easily by trying to get to us to have them contact the creator through us. Like, recently, somebody tried to contact Faust, who is no longer a part of Spindlehorse nor Hazbin Hotel, into trying to contact Viv. And she put it on Twitter and everything, and I just realized, oh geez, another one of these jokes. Because there are so many times that people just refer us to one project or not, when honestly, a lot of artists and creators that start on one project spread out immediately to so many others too. Because we want to keep on creating. And that's the joy and beauty of the animation industry and community itself too, because while it looks like that we're trying to compete with networks and such and what's the bigger show and everything else, behind the scenes, all the animators are actually just secretly rooting for each other and friendly competition, and we're all just rooting for each other and just being so proud of each other too. So, and that's the beauty of it.
I've actually noticed that it's always interesting to see just how, like, insufferably positive the animation community is.
Yeah, because we're so fucking sick of drama.
I don't mean that in any negative way either. I'm talking like it's a ridiculously overwhelming amount of positivity going on in the animation community because, yes, a lot of them have dealt with a lot of abuses or exploitation from studios. Like I was watching I was watching Tracy's stream for the Lackadaisy short. They were doing some more cleanup or other animation bits. I don't remember what they were doing exactly. I was mainly listening to it. But the moment that I jumped in, they were talking about how a lot of studios will exploit people, tell them if you want the experience, so you should be doing this for free and all that stuff, which is that's kind of stupid.
Yeah, it is.
You're still providing them that experience, but they still need to be able to put food on the table.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's actually the really big thing about the Animation Guild. The Animation Guild, for those who don't know, are the union for animators. And that has helped out so many animators on different types of projects.
I didn't know there was a union for animators.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's called the Animation Guild. And through the Animation Guild, that's how I was able to get some of my own classes art school-wise. I learned about perspective, animation through Alex Tepetti through that way. And that's how I got into 2D animation after Hazbin Hotel cleanup and everything, and making up into my own roughs. And I learned perspective through there. Carl Ganas, I was able to learn a lot more light drawing and composition, and storyboarding through him too. And the best part about those classes, where at art school they look like they're thousands of dollars, each one of those, $200 for 12 weeks at best.
Ooh.
Yeah, they're awesome, and they teach you so much more, and I love them. I love them. Yeah, a lot of
Go ahead.
Sorry. A lot of animators are trying to get union because we do want to make sure we get paid fairly because we are because we are knowing how much blood, sweat, and tears goes behind the scenes and such, and that we want to be
Right.
paid fair and well, and not
It's
having to worry about how we're going to have a roof over our heads or anything else too.
Yeah, when I was talking with Crystal and Chris back in my first ever interview, one of the
Mhm.
things they brought up is that it's very, very rare to see any voice actor who is actually, financially successful off of voice acting alone.
Mhm.
Many, if not most of them, usually have their income supplemented with, yeah, if you don't see them living with roommates, um, they're either doing that and or, running another maybe part time, but I would be guessing full time job while doing the voice acting. Like even Crystal herself, she's a criminal lawyer in Houston.
Oh, yeah, defense attorney.
Yeah,
She rocks at it.
I would imagine, and she still does voice acting when she has the time outside of work.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she apparently just announced another role that she had done in an anime, or has been promoting it at least. So being able to keep up with all that is it trying to do that myself with my current job situation, it can be a lot to keep up with.
Oh, yeah.
But with animation, the process of animation is such a time-consuming process.
Yeah.
So I can probably see why it takes so long and why it takes so many people to do, even, like I keep saying, a 10 or 15-minute animation.
Oh,
So
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
I try to imagine the scale of the Has-Been project. So many people working on that, but then you also have to consider how many of them are also doing their own things that are keeping them going outside of that animation project.
Yeah, that is very much true. Like, Carly was a part of cleanup on Has Been Hotel. Carly, making sure her last name, because she's awesome and amazing. Not that Carly. No, not Kay. On Twitter, she's known as Carly Cartoons. But she was a cleanup on Has Been Hotel, and when she was doing that, she also began her stuff on Midnight Gospel. By the way, Midnight Gospel, a wonderful, wonderful series, and that will make you cry at the end, but I still highly recommend it.
Hmm.
And she was doing work on that while also doing work on Has Been Hotel. But then it got a little bit juggled up, and then unfortunately, she was able to still do both, which is great.
Trying to juggle so much it's got to be rough.
It is a little bit. Like, for me, when still cleaning up on Has Been Hotel, I switched over from my deli job and then went over to a dishwashing job because I wanted to become part time so that I could focus more on cleanup on Has Been Hotel. But that job financially drained me because I needed to take an Uber up there. It was all uphill and it was nowhere near the best routes that I was hoping for. So I couldn't even go up that way. And if I did do the busway or the bikeway, it would be more time consuming for me. And I didn't have a choice other than doing Uber, which just consumed my finance.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do Uber. It's mainly just the people I would have to deal with. That's the only plus that I can find to DoorDash, as opposed to when you compare it to Uber, is um, you don't have to have extended contact with people.
Hmm.
Although it's also an interesting view for me in that for the longest time I had just despised being around people, especially large groups of people, save for concerts where I can go on a mosh pit. But that's only been in the last few years. But basically, since I moved up here to Sacramento in I think it was the end of 2016. Yeah, I've started like slowly opening up, but that's partly because I left behind all the people that I already knew, the life I had already established in the other town an hour south of here. So I started wanting to try to meet a few new people. So I've gone to a few game stores, got into Warhammer and all that stuff. Met a lot of cool people through that. But for me, it's one thing I've noticed I've started craving more, especially since I got into this fan community, is just getting the chance to talk with people, socializing. And I did not realize until this point that, um, being social is something that is actually incredibly healthy for people.
Oh yeah, it is. So, and there's also different ways of being social too, like doing a voice call, texting and chatting with people too.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has their different ways.
All kinds of different ways, and it's but the however you want to look at it, the point remains the same. Wherever it is just getting to talk with those people is such an amazing thing to be able to keep up with,
Yeah.
and being able to do all that. It's kind of hard to describe. It's surprisingly, um,
Euphoric?
I think so, maybe. Um, yeah, it's one of those things that's kind of hard to describe in words alone. But I would highly recommend just taking some time, dropping into a Discord, a Discord server's, voice channel when there's people in there, and you don't even have to talk the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm part of Mama Luigi actually just invited me into their server to talk with a couple. It's not a big server. I would imagine it's like invite only.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they trusted me enough to be a part of it. But there's people in there every now and then, and I'm just gonna go and join them in there. They're not always not all of them are big names, but that's why I want to be in there. Because not everybody is there to try to talk with somebody who's really well known. We're all just there to just bullshit for a bit.
Yeah.
And I've already had that a few times now. And it's by the time I finally get to sleep, I'm like, I'm going to bed happy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always a good feeling to have.
But then I start to imagine also kind of like how that dynamic is in an animation crew. I would imagine a lot of the animators weren't actively in LA at the time. A lot of them probably were working remotely.
Has been crew, yeah, definitely. We had a lot of Canadians, that's for certain. Eric was one of them, Seb, Mexican 64, Reggie, so.
But with a lot of the people that were there, I'm guessing not everybody was all in the same building for the animation.
No, actually, with Husband Hotel, it was actually more freelance, which you could do right at home.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a studio or anything. You could just do it right inside your room. And that was a joy and a curse at that same time because being at your own place, you're like being a lot more comfortable and stuff like that. But a lot of artists still struggle with this, is just trying to focus and everything else.
Right.
I definitely struggle a lot with focusing and trying to keep up with my deadlines. I am getting better at the deadline part, but it still is a struggle. And that's never not going to stop being it. Along with not going outside because you're spending so much amount of time either animating a rough or cleaning up and trying to focus on your own projects as well too. That at times you will forget to sleep, of course, or to go outside, and going outside is also very important for you.
Even just forgetting to stand up and stretch is very easy to do.
Yeah, and socializing. That is also a very important part that you referred to as well. And that's something a lot of freelance animators tend to forget because we're focusing so much on getting our work done. For me, when it gets to socializing, and trying to do artwork at the same time, streaming, like either on Twitch, Picardo, or any other, has helped me a lot because people then chat, and I can either listen to a horror podcast and people can listen along with me, or with the beauty of Picardo, you can actually join streams with other people and multi-stream, and you could watch what they're drawing and what they're listening to as background noise or what they're watching movie-wise too.
Right.
And it becomes its own social thing itself.
That was definitely one of the interesting things working at, because I used to work at this Apple like repair facility that they have up here in this town, and it was one of the things that I had to sit in this like, not really a cubicle, but it's almost like a squared off area with a few desks, and all I had to socialize was like the 2-3 people that were in that immediate vicinity, and annoyingly they didn't allow like music or radios or anything in there. but then I get to this job that I'm at now, and they allow you to wear these headphones that have radio capability in them. But then you're kind of left to wonder who else is listening to the same show right now. And so I have, it kind of becomes a double-edged thing of, sure, it makes you go around to ask people to see if they're listening to the same show, what they're listening to, see if it's something you might be interested in. But on the other hand, you have to go and ask people.
Yeah.
Which is like, I know it runs kind of counter to this whole thing I've been going on this whole time of, it's good to socialize, but at the same time, with a job like this, you still have to be productive and doing things, and management ain't going to like it if you're standing around just chatting with people and not doing anything.
Everything has its pros and cons.
Oh, yeah. But that's one of the things that I liked about having to be in a group, working together on something, is one of us can throw on music, doing something on some boombox or like portable Bluetooth speaker or whatever it is, and we're all into listening to it. One of us might ask questions, and we start getting into some discussion about who the artist is, yada, yada, yada. A lot of fun just to have that potential for a conversation there. So when it comes to things kind of like this, we've had, in the other podcast group, we've had movie nights where we just sit in a Discord call and watch the movie off of somebody's stream. And it's been fun. Just being there, sharing in the experience of whatever we're watching. There's been times where we even just streamed YouTube videos of our favorite memes.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's actually a lot of the same thing too, of the different Discord group calls I go into as well. We watch films, we shitpost, we just say whatever. We sometimes watch other people play video games and such. It's always fun. So
always fun. So I guess in that regard, I'll ask you, just like, what kind of experiences stand out to you as like especially powerful learning experiences for you when it comes to animation or art? And you don't have to be especially specific about anything, like I said before, just in case there's like NDA stuff you want to be careful of.
Like the experience I had, or what?
Yeah, any particular experiences when it comes to doing art or animation that just stand out to you as something you that's like maybe an especially like special instance of something that happened, or definitely one of the biggest learning experiences you've had?
I think for me, it's just experiencing how a lot more people are similar to me in a sense. Like, how, as I said earlier, about how a lot of artists had autism and such.
Right.
I wasn't even aware of that until I finally started working, and then I realized some other people that I either follow or I communicate with were on the spectrum or something else too. And growing up in a town and you're a high-functioning autistic person, you're able to mask it pretty well. But then growing up, it kind of got a bit more harder. And then meeting other people like that, otherwise, that helped me feel like I wasn't fully alone. And that's the beauty of the art and animation community itself, is that you can literally find people in here who have had the same struggles you had and would had a completely different life altogether. But there's something there that helped you connect to it, and through that, you're able to learn more about them, and you're able to become wonderful friends and people with them, too. Granted that it wasn't always the case with everything, but another good experience was learning how... Another good learning experience of mine... I think, honestly, the best learning experience I had is just meeting all the people that I've had throughout the projects. So, even not meeting them in person and on the computer, there's still so many wonderful people that I've met that I cherish and hold dearly. And a lot of them you've also interviewed on here, too. Fable, Ashley, Michael, Kennedy, Crystal, Chris. They're all such wonderful people that are going into their own dream, that are following their careers and dreams, while at that same time making sure that they're keeping afloat too, but assuring that it's happening. And that's the beauty of it, because within the art, animation, and voice acting community, we don't push anyone down. Like how you see in a lot of films where if you're an actress, you try to survival of the fittest in a sense, where you try to push them down. Instead, we help pull them up in a sense. We pull them up and we try to help bring their story to life so that someday they can help bring our story to life.
Right. Oh, damn it. I just lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
Damn it, this happens.
It's all right. So that's a thing. That's a thing that happens
okay,
for me
there
too.
it was. Yeah, I've talked with a few people who've been in this, who've been down this kind of path themselves. Like, I mentioned Jun Yoon before. He was an especially like powerful case, in my opinion, because when he was before he started doing this voice acting thing that he's on now, he used to be a drama teacher in high school or for a high school, and then he lost the job. And he was just in a complete, he was just in this state of total, like, he was a wreck.
Yeah.
Until eventually, I think he said it was his wife that started pushing him to just go for the voice acting thing or to continue going for anything in regards to acting. So he picked up a microphone and stuck some towels on the walls of his garage and recorded in a corner. And now he's got, an actual professional recording booth that he's working with. He's, very active on Twitter, talking with a lot of people, trying to inspire people. Another good example was Shawn Chiplock, who I've talked with. And he was just, I think he said he was in college at the time. And he was just like, okay, this is the thing I want to do. He just sticks a microphone on his desk and starts recording, and now he's one of the most well-known voice actors that so many people love to just listen to.
Yeah.
Even just watching his Twitch streams, he's very entertaining to watch.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So it's very interesting to see how many of these people will actually full-on pursue whatever these specific dreams are, if it's animation, if it's voice acting, if it's writing or directing, or even being a Twitch streamer or a YouTuber. So many of them will put in the time and effort, and it seems a lot of the time when they do that, that's when they reach that point that they feel comfortable doing so.
Yeah.
Like with animation, I haven't talked with a lot of animators myself yet on this show. You're probably the, if we're counting Fable and Katie from Lackadaisy as separate instances, even though they were on the same episode.
They're both animators, yeah.
You're only in the end, you're still only the second animation interview that I've had so far. And for me, looking at animation, it's such a tedious but still complex process to go through to get a finished product.
Yeah.
But every time it finally comes out as ready to go, it always looks so amazing.
Yeah. And that's something I wish a lot of people in the mainstream would recognize, because animation is such a vast and amazing field of storytelling that can shape a lot of genres into the surreal, the incredible, and the terrifying. And even at best, even putting yourself into an own dreamscape as well, too.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people still think it's still family and kids oriented, but it's not. There are so many films out there done by animators and artists that deal with such adult-like themes and stories that are done so beautifully as well, too. Like, how I got exposed to animation, it was through Disney at first, but how I got fully into wanting to become an animator and illustrator was through a French film called The Triplets of Belleville, done by Sylvain Chaumet. Now, this one, there's no dialogue, none whatsoever. It's done completely by the posture and the expression the characters are showing. No dialogue, none whatsoever. But I was able to understand what was happening inside that whole film itself, because the animators were being the director, the actor, and the creator of that character, and they are telling the story through that character itself. And that's one of the big things the animators want to do, are just assuring to do that, telling the story through the character and how they're making it.
Especially with how many ideas are going through so many heads at one time. each head has its own ideas that, for me, after following so many artists and animators on Twitter, at least, just Twitter alone, I've come to, like, crave seeing how different all these imaginations are. So many different stories.
Yeah, and it's becoming big more of a thing. Like Gendy Tartakovsky, he's huge. He was inspired a lot by Japanese film. There's one artist that I forgot of that's a Japanese artist, and I need to remember him because he's a big influence for Tartakovsky. But a lot of people on here know him for Hotel Transylvania and Samurai Jack. But his newer series, Primal, it deals a lot more with heavier stuff on Adult Swim, and it is so beautiful. And again, no dialogue at all, just whatsoever. Just explaining the story through the characters and the scenery itself, which is amazing.
That's always an accomplishment, to pull off a great story without dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see that often either.
Pulling a story without dialogue. But it also just depends on the story itself, too. Like Samurai Jack, that was an entire kids' cartoon that was a whole other level. Infinity Train, sadly got canceled and needs to be renewed, goddammit, was a whole other story that was a whole nother level, and was dealing with such themes and such that they knew kids can deal and understand well, no matter how scary and horrifying it is. And Avatar: The Last Airbender is such a wonderful series because they knew that no matter the age range, it was going to be something that everyone can watch, not just kids or families itself, everyone, because they knew that everyone would understand what the characters were going through and that they would feel for them, no matter what.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Avatar: The Last Airbender became one of those, like, it's one of those things that it's lightning that will never strike twice.
Yeah.
It was it's like its own island out in the middle of the vast ocean, but it's such a beautiful place. And whenever I do watch it, and it's why I think it's kind of hard to really judge The Legend of Korra, because if you were to try to compare it to The Last Airbender, yeah, it's not going to be as, fantastic. It's not going to be as amazing. But just like any other kind of like spin-off series, it's supposed to be taken by its own value.
Yeah.
Trying to compare it to older things is kind of like, I don't even know how I could describe that.
Yeah, but a lot of people still do. They still compare the Looney Tunes one, Space Jam, they still compare to that. So, especially with the newer Space Jam coming up soon.
Space Jam is an interesting one because the first one had Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Who you can tell he's not an actor.
Yeah.
He was there mainly because from what everything looks like in Space Jam, it just looks like the whole movie was an extension of the Nike Bugs Bunny advertising campaign that Nike did. It just happened to have its own story now.
Yeah, and happens to have its own story. And that's a cool thing because they're paying homage to the old Space Jam, but they're also assuring that it's being its own different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sonic, a lot of people try to compare it when the first Sonic came out with the original design. God almighty, let that never be seen again. A lot of people compared about that, and the studio realized that, and they made it better thanks to Tyson Hesse. Well, thank God for that.
Right.
Yeah.
I do remember, though, one of the things that came up after they made the change for Sonic was the Nostalgia Critic went and did one of his like bi-weekly or semi-weekly editorial things, and he talked about the quote-unquote patching of a movie, and the Sonic movie was the main example he was touching on with that, in that I think it was before they released the movie, they went and did the redesign. But he brought up an interesting point of what was the idea that they had with the original design. Like, yeah. It may have terrified people, but where were they going with it?
Just about the same thing as they were doing with the Smurfs and Alvin and the Chipmunks, possibly.
Aesthetic-wise, yeah, it wasn't exactly pleasing to the eye, and you got to wonder who went and approved that idea. But
there's a lot of things that are approved that you wonder why. Per example, cats.
Yes, cats is an example that people just did not shut up about it when that first came around. And I'm pretty sure we're talking about the most recent iteration of the movie.
Yeah, that one, yep.
Yeah. All I remember people talking about was cats' buttholes. What?
Yeah, they actually took that out on the DVD version. I saw that with a group of friends of mine, the DVD version, and then they didn't show the butthole part.
And
But it's also funny that we bring up cats too, because you may not know this, but back in the 1990s, there actually was production happening for an animated cats film.
you're talking 2D animation?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Oh.
And online you could see the concept sheets for it, but it never went through because I guess is what funding didn't go through or interest as well, and it never happened, which is sad because it looks amazing production wise.
Mhm.
But that's also another thing that happens a lot in animation as well, is because if you're working on something, might be a chance that it may be canceled at any time.
Hmm.
Like with the Blue Sky Studios that got canceled, they were in a film that was 95% done. I repeat,
Oh.
95% done. And Blue Sky Studios was shut down,
Oh.
and whatever they were working on was all gone.
Shit.
Yeah.
Did they ever say what that project was?
I forgot the name of it, but let me double check.
Because that would I don't know why people rip on Blue Sky so much. I actually found their movies to be pretty I actually enjoyed their movies that they were putting out.
Yeah, Blue Sky Studios was always so much fun. Let's see. They actually still have the website up for some odd reason.
Huh.
Interesting.
Weird. They actually completely shuttered the whole thing, or was it just one of those things they're just kind of like they're liquidating the assets, but it's not completely like disbanded or something like that?
They actually just shut down the studio, so
Hmm.
yeah, I'm trying to find it.
I'm wondering if it's one of those things where some other entity is holding on to the rights of the company.
No, Disney definitely did buy it, so
Hmm.
let me see. Oh, Disney.
Some plans for it then, maybe. I'm not sure.
Nimona, that's what it was. So, yeah, it was Nimona.
Huh.
It's no longer sustainable to run.
Definitely sounds like another culture. I just don't know what the hell it could be, because that
Yeah.
pronunciation could go anywhere.
Yeah, Nimona. Nimona was actually a comic and webcomic done by Noelle Stevenson. And they started it, and it was in production at Blue Sky. And I repeat, it was about 95% done right until Blue Sky Studios was shut down, and that film was canceled. So yeah, a lot of animators just immediately lost their jobs that they possibly spent months and years on that.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Is animation one of those things that it mainly pays out when the production is finished, or is it still paid on, some regular like salary schedule, like every week, every other week, every month, something like that?
That is another thing, and that's why the Animation Guild is so important to so many animators too, because you may be paid in production, and you got to be paid during in production, because how else are you going to pay your bills? But then there are other times where you're working, and then afterwards, when you're done, they could possibly let you go, and there have been stories of that, and it's horrifying. And you also have stories where you're working over hours at studios as well too, and they won't pay you for that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Do you think that usually happens more at the bigger studios?
That definitely at the bigger studios, but also inside freelance and underneath the table studios too, in a sense.
Oh man, I'm starting to imagine what some of those conditions are like, because we all know I don't know if it's really a joke anymore, the conditions of animators with Disney. But I have not heard much about the workplace environment when it comes to like the more independent animations like Long Gone Gulch, or Has Been, of course. Other things like what's another good example that I can think of? I feel like I just saw another one a couple days ago, but I've already forgotten what the hell it was.
New Hello Boss episode?
No, not hell of a boss. I something tells me that the people who work on Hell of a Boss are already in a at least decent workplace environment working with Spindlehorse.
Yeah. Viv does pay us well. She paid us well on Hasbin Hotel, and I know that they're paid well on Helva, so thank goodness.
Mhm. That's another thing that I wanted to figure out when it comes to animation projects and um, things that are involved with it, like merchandise. Is that does the selling of merchandise actually help to fund projects that are like has been hell of a long gone gold? Does the merchandise sales actually help for the funding of those projects?
Yes,
And we're
it
talking.
does because it does because while Kickstarters and Patreons do help out a little bit with money, it's not fully there, and people are expecting more.
Mhm.
So with merch, you're able to give them more and also give them what they want, while also paying artists that worked on the merch prints and everything else too. That's paramount, and assuring that the crew still works.
Hmm. Now, on average, how long do you think, how many hours do you think goes into making, let's say, a minute of animation? Like, we're talking like total work hours.
Minute animation. Okay, so sorry, finishing something I'm currently gobbling on.
It's all right.
All right, so I'm gonna do a bit of a demo on here. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm putting that off.
I'm trying, Luigi. Thank you.
Also, hi Luigi. Hi Edouard. Hi Robinson Knox. All right, so let me show a quick demo. So, depending on how many people might know about this, inside a second there are frames, and inside each second there are 24 frames per second that help make it complete.
Mm-hmm.
For animators, we use those frames as different pictures and drawings that help us make the animation itself. So, let's say that what I'm drawing right here is the second. And there's frames that go within that second that help make that movement. Now, because of that, animators use a thing called ones and twos and threes. That's how many frames we make per second. So if it's ones, you're using all 24 frames of the second. If it's twos, you're using 12 frames because you're going in between 2 frames in order to make the drawing of each second. Yeah. Now this gets a little bit jumbled because sometimes if you're saying like 1/16th or 1/64th, that may be a lot more than just a 1. And that's something that still is a little bit confusing. But in this case, I'm just going to do it the easier and most common way of animators, where a lot of animators use twos and ones. Twos are used for the movements, and ones are sometimes used for the quick motion. Like, I am going to draw an interesting stick figure that is on ones. It starts out on a 2, but then in order to do the movement, like this, it's a 1, and then goes back to a 2. So if you want to say something that moved through your eye like a flash, you would use a 1. Do you get where I'm getting at, or are you still a little bit confused? Hello?
No, I think I'm trying to follow along. Sometimes it just takes a minute for something to click for me.
Okay, so pretend you're hitting something in front of your monitor, and you got to move your hand.
Right.
I'm doing that right now, like 3, 2, 1, go really quickly. With that flow and motion, with that speed was 1 frame.
Okay.
Yeah. And we use that for quickness and stuff. So, because of the 24 or 12 frames per second, you are drawing literally the same picture over and over and over and over and over again until it gets into a minute. And if you're drawing a minute of that with 24 frames per second, that there is 24 times 60 is 1,440 frames. Yeah, and a lot goes into it. You got the rough animation, but at that same time, you also got to take care of the cleanup, the coloring, the detail, and the effects on it too. And it goes into a lot of it, which is why it still takes up a lot of time to draw and animate it.
Oh man.
Yeah. And if you're also multiplying it by that, by cleanup itself, that then goes from 1440 to 2880 frames.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I can see why there's usually such a large animation crew.
Oh, yeah, you need it.
Yeah.
And it's not also just needing that, it's also different people who also can give their experience and advice onto the show and production itself, too.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I can actually see why you don't see a lot of long animations from independent animators. Like I've seen some of the animations that Ashley has done on her YouTube channel, and a lot of them are very like repetitive, sort of repetitive motions, like waves washing up on the beach, something like that. Um, just doing those few seconds of that animation and then just put it on a loop to something. That's that's pretty simple. You can probably get that done. I would say maybe in a day, but if I'm understanding their explanation correctly. Um, but when it comes to things like animating a meme, there's an artist that does animation. They're a bit of a mature artist, but the animations that they've done have usually been very like they're pretty smooth. I don't know if they work with a crew or not.
What's their name? I might know them.
Divs.
Devs. Let me see.
2 eyes.
Not seeing a Twitter user called Divs.
Diives.
Diivs.
Es.
Yes. Okay.
Like I said, they're a bit more of a mature content type of artist in
Yeah,
animation.
don't worry. I'm not gonna be showing it.
Yeah. But I've
Let
seen
me see.
they have a YouTube channel where they do show other animations that aren't as mature content. And it's their animation is usually pretty fun to watch. Um, yeah, but like I said, I don't know if they work with a crew or not. So if they don't, some of
I
their
don't think
animations
so.
are. Was that?
Yeah. And my guess is with their artwork, they are able to have a Patreon, and with their streaming, keeping up a group and following that help assure their paying and funding for this too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I would assume
and by
so.
looking at this, they're not doing any. I'm not going into details of it, but by looking at it, they some of them actually do use loops, and loops are also another helpful thing inside animation.
Mhm.
Like another example of animation teaching. Like, let's see. You ever seen those Popeye ones where he's staring up his arm a lot?
Staring up his arm?
Yeah, staring up his arm, ready to punch Pluto in the face.
Oh yeah, I think I know what you.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
those
I
are
know
called
what you're
loops.
talking about.
Yeah, with loops, we actually have a fun technique that helps cut down the drawing stuff. So what I'm doing right here is making up Popeye's arm right here. And the whole loop thing would be done in one, so it would be done very quick.
Mm-hmm.
But with this, it would be beginning frame, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then when you go back to 1. And that's a loop. So that way you won't have to keep on drawing the circle every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and assuring it's going this way. And that helps us out with motions like rowing or punching things, or of course what Divs draws.
Um,
Yeah.
because one thing that I remember seeing a while back, it was some like really, really old film, like one of those behind the scenes film, the behind the scenes, one of those old behind the scenes films of some Mickey animation,
Mhm.
where they had this like really long scroll of a background art, and they just kind of like moved it like maybe an eighth of an inch or something like that for every frame. But then they also take this sort of like a clear, like a clear print of Mickey for each frame of his walk cycle, and they just keep swapping out the next frame for the next one as they move the background scroll over a little bit. So they basically have like this cheat way of doing Mickey walking through the forest or through the hills to go to a fishing spot or something like that.
That's looping. I know what you're talking about with that happy skip and everything. That's looping.
Yeah. And it was really interesting to see the ways that they get around and trying to save the time on all this, especially depending on what the situation calls for. But yeah, a lot of this is really interesting stuff to get into. And one thing to get onto that is when it comes to all these different things, like obviously the background artist has their responsibility of doing the background. But when it comes to things that are like multiple characters interacting, is it that somebody is one person is in charge of a particular like set of frames or specific time period of animation, or is it more that different characters are relegated to different animators for a scene?
Yeah. So with Has Been, it was actually different shots that were given to different animators. So everyone had their own way of drawing each and different character, but they had to make sure they drew it precisely or as close enough as they could.
It sounds like what Lackadaisy is doing, because I remember they talked about, like saying, I remember Fable said that they like to give specific shots to people who really show their strengths in those particular types of scenes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it sounds like it kind of sounds like Fable took a few lessons from Has Been.
Oh yeah,
if I'm putting that correctly.
Has Been, and they also worked on quite a few other shows as well.
So I've heard.
So
I've actually, I think I remember Fable saying that they used to work for Titmouse as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Titmouse has been one of those really interesting little studios, because I remember seeing them on, I think, a few different things for Adult Swim.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of fun on that. It's actually really interesting to see how many different animators that are popping up in the indie scenes nowadays. How many of them are coming from studios like that, whether it's freelancers or regular animators for them. A lot of them came from those big network type of places.
Well, that's because we also want to show more of what we can do and what we can create. One of the cool things, especially right now for animation, is that there's a certain type of revolution that's happening. A lot with indie animation itself, Has Been Hotel, Hello Boss, Lackadaisy, Long Gone Gulch, and many, many others. And because they are realizing that with the hope of being able to fund it themselves through Kickstarters, Patreon, and other things like that, is that you can begin to make your own story without having to worry that your own pitch or something else like that will be rejected. And then the fun part is that you can pay the animators and making sure that they are being paid fairly, too.
That's one thing that I also want to ask
or
about.
Or paying as much as you can right now, because you're also sometimes paying out of your own pocket.
Ooh.
Yeah. Right. But you're wanting to make sure that the end product is good.
So when it comes to the Animation Guild, is that kind of like is that kind of like SAG-AFTRA, where you gotta like have yourself sort of established to join the guild, or is it more just like sign up with us?
No, in this case, you can pay to be part of the union, or if you're inside an industry and you have to become a part of the union, depending on which project it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think with the Animation Guild, you can pay to be a part of the guild member and a part of the union in order to make sure that you get the benefits and everything else too. For me, I didn't have to in order to take my classes, but I know that there was some people who did pay to be guild members in order to get more early access to things.
Right.
And benefits too.
Okay. So it's kind of like the difference of, they have the baseline set up for people, but if you want some of those, like, basically it's basically kind of like subscribing to the premium membership, basically.
Yeah, in a sense.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because when I got into the voiceover scene, one of the first places I joined was the voice acting club. And they actually have a channel in that Discord server specifically set up for suggested rates for voice actors, depending on what type of project it is and, your level of experience and all that. But they're, for the most part, based on SAG-AFTRA, union rates. And then they have a separate one for suggested rates for people who are not part of the union. And it sounds like the Artist Guild is very similar in that regard.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
So it's
a little bit, but they're also making sure that people who don't have money are still able to break into the industry any way they can. So, and ensuring that they have the best learning experiences too. Like the Animation Guild classes, they're taught by people who have worked in the industry and have worked on shows and stuff like that. At art schools, you may be learning from teachers, but you don't know if those teachers actually worked on a show or not, or a film. The Animation Guild does allow that and does help you out with that.
Because there's art schools all over the place. I remember, I think it was as I was graduating high school, shortly after, I was considering what I was going to do for college, and one place that was actually standing out to me was going to one of those like franchise art colleges. I'm trying to remember. I think it was the Art Institute.
Yeah, that is. Now, if we're talking about memes here, that's become a meme amongst the animation community.
Yeah.
So
I've heard.
Granted, a lot of artists have gone through the Art Institute as well and have gone out great. But yeah, the Art Institute was just caring for your money and not really much else.
I used to look at doing the one in San Francisco, and this is when I was still living in my old hometown of Modesto. Which, if you've ever heard the name, you're most likely going to associate it with George Lucas because he graduated from a high school there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. The school itself still feels slightly like 50s-ish in terms of construction quality.
Okay.
But it's still a nice school. But yeah, like I said, it's where I was looking at some of these different art places. The Art Institute of California. I just remember the big AI in like a red circle or something like that. And people were. I had a couple of people. I think my parents and maybe one or two other people telling me, not a good idea. They're charging like almost the same kind of tuition prices as any other school would for something that, the old mindset of art is not a career. So I eventually just kind of passed on that, especially since it would require something like $30,000 to join it. The last I ever talked with them, and whenever I tried to apply for student aid, I only ever got what was what's called the BOG waiver, Board of Governors fee waiver. It only covers tuition. You still have to cover material costs, books. If there's dorms involved, you have to pay for that. And I'm just like, I don't have that money right now.
Yeah.
So it would have been fun if I had the money. Maybe. I'm not sure. I have not heard anything about the San Francisco campus or anything like that. But I've found my way into classes for other things that I enjoy doing. Like I was talking with before we started this, I'm still in the process of trying to fix my car, a pretty big fix. But I would not have tried to do that myself if I wasn't taking the classes at my old community college for that.
Yeah.
And it's saving me a lot of money because I more or less know what to do. It's just that, like doing anything, it can be tedious, pain in the ass type of job. But for me, the first time I ever fixed a car, such a satisfying feeling when, I took it on the road and it was like, it works.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I'm sure
everything that has a learning basis always is satisfying in the end, too.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of animators, when they see that first, like, full animation, whatever it is that they do, probably do like I did. They just get this really big, stupid smile on their face when they see that it actually came together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a feeling. That is definitely a heroic feeling.
Like the closest thing for me in art that I've had something like that on was, no, that didn't actually, they actually just stopped doing that. I did a voice for, I think is a minor character technically, for an audio drama that somebody was doing at their college in New Jersey, St. Montclair. And that aired on the local college radio station, and when I listened to it, I'm like, I was in the middle of playing a game of Warhammer 40,000, and I was still, kind of smiling when I saw it was finally airing. People were listening to it. I'm like, this feels a lot better than I thought it would. I thought I would feel like really embarrassed or maybe bashful, shy, something like that. But I'm just like, I'm very much all right with this, and I kind of like how this feels.
Yeah.
And with animators and artists, when they see all their first pieces come up and they see it looks the way they wanted it, and I can only imagine they have that same feeling where they just feel so satisfied with it. And then I'm not sure how often they end up feeling the same satisfaction afterward. I'm sure they feel some level of satisfaction, but that first time though, you used the word earlier, euphoric. That's the closest I can think of as a description for that feeling, that first time feeling.
Definitely.
Oh, okay. I thought I lost you for a second.
No.
Yeah, my internet tends to have this issue of like completely losing connection for like 6 seconds, and then all of a sudden it completely catches up again all at once.
No, you're okay, man.
So
you're all good.
Your time and experience in art and animation definitely seems to have taught you quite a few things, especially how the process works, and then figuring out your style. Like I'm seeing here right now, it almost looks like a gremlin.
Yeah, it's a little tiny imp. This one name is Trouble, who's the familiar to this girl. Yeah, this girl's name is Witty. Witty is definitely one of the stories I want to bring up to life on the TV. She's a little girl who's around the age of 11, who's went to a distant relative who is this person right near here. Her name is Giannis, and wants to become a witch guard. A witch guard is somebody that protects the balances of magic and nature and harmonizes it all together. And the thing is, you can't just immediately just go into it like you're applying. It possibly chooses you, like fate, in a sense. And Witty thinks that she can become a witch guard, but Giannis is very, very resistant in teaching her. But fortunately, Witty is just very stubborn and keeps on pursuing while also meeting other people in witch guard, too. It definitely is going to have the feeling of Avatar and The Last Airbender, but also a lot of Ghibli films, too.
Ooh.
So
I love Studio Ghibli. We've talked about the Studio Ghibli works a few times already, and that was one of the earliest memories I have. I think the first 2D animation I ever saw was the original English dub of My Neighbor Totoro.
Yeah. And for me, the first Ghibli film I ever saw was Princess Mononoke in cinema, and I was about 6 or 7.
Yeah.
A lot of people would say that it would scare them, especially with the demon, but me, I was just fascinated by it.
Those old Studio Ghibli films always had some amazingly entertaining mixtures of just like incredible fantasy, just total wonder, and still having something that was just like shit your pants terrifying.
Yeah, definitely.
Something.
Because that's actually a good thing that we're also bringing up Ghibli, because earlier on I was discussing how the Japanese artist industry tend to want to screw animators and artists over. With Ghibli, there actually is a bit more fair pay with them, and that's good. But Miyazaki himself is also still a really hard director to be with as well, too.
Really?
But that doesn't mean his films are not wonderful, and they're amazing, so.
Sounds about right. I've heard stories that are similar to this. Like I think I mentioned before, my brother got me into punk rock and ska. I don't know if that was this interview or a previous one, but my brother got me into ska, the music genre. It's kind of like punk rock mixed with like jazz. I definitely know what that is.
Yeah.
Fun shit. And one of the first things he ever got me to do, in terms of anything ska, was to join him in going to a concert for Streetlight Manifesto.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a load of fun. We took a trip to San Francisco for that show, and I think this was just as I had lost a job somewhere. I think this was just after my first job let me go after I moved out to Sacramento. And, and that show was just an absolute blast for me.
Nice.
But getting into that, it was it was a load of fun getting into Streetlight Manifesto and starting to follow a little bit of their history. In fact, I think at the time they were just getting into this huge dispute with their record company, their label. Something about one of the first albums they did was for another band that the vocalist was a part of called Catch 22. And the Streetlight wanted to do like a remaster or some shit, and he was just like, no remaster. We're not just, taking the same recording and, doing some cheap enhancement on it. No. If you guys are so like adamant on doing it, we're just going to do a whole re-recording of the entire album in our style. And they did. But I guess that album being the first one for them was the point of the dispute, in that they were supposed to fill some quota of like a certain number of albums within like a 5 or 10 year time span or some shit.
Yeah.
And that album didn't count, which means they didn't quite fulfill that quota.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So it came into some big settlement that they didn't disclose. They just announced that it was finally dealt with, and they're now independent. But that vocalist that basically leads the band at this point, his name is Thomas Konalki, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how his name is actually spelled. But I love listening to him. Amazing voice, very entertaining to watch. But according to my brother, he's also a very a massive piece of shit.
Oh, wow.
Or rather, very like self-conceited. I don't remember how exactly he described him, but it wasn't the most flattering description. And when you talk about Miyazaki being kind of a hard director to work with, it kind of sounds similar in that we love these individuals so much, but then we start hearing about how they are to actually work with, and you start to think, maybe that's not quite as great. But then my mind starts going into other things of like, sure, but we still enjoy their work so much.
Oh, yeah.
It's
like with Kubrick. Kubrick was horrible, especially what he did to Shelley Duvall, but that doesn't stop me from watching The Clockwork Orange and The Shining. Now, there are some directors and such that after hearing stuff about them, like, I am not going to watch any of their stuff ever again, no matter what. Tartakovsky? Not Tartakovsky, thank God. Gendy Tartakovsky is still one of my number ones. But, recently in animation, not recently, but it is being known, the Ren and Stimpy creator, John C.K.
Really?
Like, have you heard about him?
No.
Yeah. He was a groomer when he was younger, and yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm dealing with some sensitive material stuff right now, people, but it also needs to be known, John C.K., he was a horrible director and treated his crew and people very badly, and he groomed a couple of people that are also animators today. And they were very young at that time, so sorry for that sensitive material and slight trigger warnings, but I apologize for saying that, but it also needs to be known, too.
Right. It's always interesting to see just how many of these people that we see that we enjoy so much. Like, I can understand one thing when it comes to Miyazaki, Thomas Konalki, Kubrick, these people who have such vivid imaginations and have told such amazing stories, being a little difficult to work with because they're like that basically anal retentive on getting their like vision fully realized. Like, they're just that dedicated to the job that I guess in some problematic extents can be kind of like not that great to work with.
Yeah,
that's one thing I can understand. But situations like that, with what did you say his name was? CK, something like that?
Yeah, John CK.
Yeah, in situations like that, that's just kind of not amazing. Like, one of the other ones that I actually got surprised by was Butch Hartman.
Butch Hartman, again, another possible meme of the animation community too. So
yeah, it's like I love Fairly Odd Parents. I love Danny Phantom.
Oh, I love Danny Phantom too. That is one of the shows that helped inspire me a lot. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So
But then you start hearing about the guy behind it, and it's suddenly like, yeah, this is where I'm gonna start applying that love the art, not the artist,
yeah.
policy. Um, One guy that I've always had issues with though was what was the name of the guy? Dan Schneider. Also on Nickelodeon, where he made a lot of the live action sitcoms like Drake and Josh, iCarly.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
That guy.
The problem I had with him was, Drake and Josh was, for me, one of my all-time favorite sitcoms. It still is, actually.
Yeah.
But then I started watching iCarly as well because Drake and Josh finally, reached its end. They, started moving on to other things. And iCarly at first is, pretty fun for me to watch. But then later on, I started noticing all the humor at this point is just, these people are dickheads.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, why is this funny? This is just uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I did not see that change at all with any of his later shows. To me, it's just, he seems kind of like infantile almost in the way he writes things, and that people being dickheads is funny. Why?
Because it is. Just because.
I don't know. Like, for me, I make the jokes in this podcast group of like, I'll never understand Zoomer humor. But that's, for me, it's just kind of like that little joke I have because I actually enjoy absurdist humor. It's just, in my experience, Zoomers tend to take that absurdity to a different level than I'm used to. So I'm like, one example I have is one of the podcast members here, with the other podcast rather, that for some stupid reason they dropped into the voice call. And they were giggling. She was giggling her ass off. I'm like, what the hell are you laughing at? She says she shares this picture of just a hammer being held in a hand, and all she can keep saying is, "It's a hammer." I'm like, why is that funny?
I don't know.
She kept laughing her ass off, and I was just lost. I'm like, what the hell? And for me, that's not the same thing as what Dan Schneider was pulling with his shows. It's just, dickhead humor is not my type of thing. I can enjoy absurdist humor, just not that. So that was kind of rough for me to have to watch when it started getting to that point. Like, I still enjoy watching Miranda Cosgrove, Jeanette McCurdy, yeah, and Jeanette, like, I find Jeanette to be fascinating because now she's starting to actually do directing.
Oh, yeah.
Which I want to start, checking some of that out because I want to see what kind of vision she has that she wants to share. And that comes to the big thing for me when it comes to anyone who does, production lead stuff or when they're in charge of a production like that. Obviously we saw Viv's imagination with Has-Been and Helava. There's still more that she has planned, especially with the heaven side of it all. But then we also see the imaginations of people that had, that were even just a part of it. Like, I've become a fan of Kennedy's audiobook, Magus Elgar, which I believe you also did an art for him of one of the characters in that.
Yeah. I made Magus Sterling.
Yes. At first, the image was a pangolin, if I remember correctly, but then they started going, what we have writing for him now just isn't going to work for this kind of image. So now he's a big fluffy dog.
Yep, big fluffy dog. Which reminds me, I should call that big fluffy dog after this witty pouting.
But yeah, he explained a little bit about how that species works in the show, and I'm like, this is hilarious. I love this. And then, with you told us a little about, what did you say this character's name was? Witty, I think? Yeah,
Witty. Witty.
Yeah, he told us a little bit about her imp familiar. This is something that I want to check out, and I'm hoping there's going to be like a webcomic or something like that leading up to it.
What I am planning on doing is sorry, my kitten Oliver's trying to claw my legs. Let me try to get him away right now.
When I started the Lackadaisy one, apparently Rosie was, hijacking Michael's computer desktop.
Yeah. Yeah, Rosie. Yeah. Cats! And pretty much this one is back, so I'm just going to be holding him until it's all done. But, yeah, with Witty, I wanted to become an animated series, and hopefully with that series, just about 3 seasons at best. And then with that series, a runoff series called House of the Wicked, that's going to be a lot more adult themed like and more like Sabrina, but animated. And then back to Witty when she's fully grown up.
Are you talking?
And
Are you talking the original Sabrina or the more edgy recent iteration?
more edgy one, more edgy one.
It's just not that one just wasn't my thing. But I do see
At
what
the
you're
end
going
of
for.
seasons, at the ending seasons, it was like, meh. But it does play as an aesthetic for the House of the Wicked. House of the Wicked is going to be a lot more like Magnus Archives. And if you ever heard of that podcast, if you have not, I highly suggest you get to it. It just wrapped up about a month ago, and it is. I say that because of my cat Oliver, who just wanted to try to get my headphones streamed.
I thought that was a sound of just like total excitement with a perfectly cut scream.
No, that was Oliver making this into a perfectly cut scream. I'm now holding him right now.
Great. I keep my cat out of my room at all times.
I should do that. Let me be right back. Let me just put him inside my room. Right. I'll be right back.
Yeah, my cat, I always keep him out of the room because I have leopard geckos in my room, and cats are not very good for a leopard gecko's health if they start licking them. So that's my precaution. I just keep my cat out of the room at all times. Loads of fun. At least my cat is, I guess, lazy enough to not try to get into my room all the time. He tends to just stand outside of my room, even when the door is open, but that's because I have the fan in front of the door the whole time. I don't know why, but he finds that as a barrier, even though he can easily jump over it.
Hey, now I'm back.
Yay.
Yeah, now we no longer have to worry about Oliver doing any more perfectly timed screams.
But,
yeah.
What
was it?
I think you were getting somewhere about what you were doing with your little imagination that you've kind of shared with us. I don't think we even have a name for it.
Yeah. Witty, that starts off with the same name too, Witty. But it's also a short abbreviation for Witch Guard in Training to Giannis.
Oh.
Which of course is Giannis right up here. And Witty is basically the world you're going to see is the same way as Ghibli introduces a world, but you're also going to experience and understand it the same way that Avatar: The Last Airbender makes you understand it too. But also having that feeling of how magic is everywhere. No matter how terrifying or amazing it is, it's everywhere too. Even if you learn little stuff. Another big lesson is that no matter how old you are, you still learn no matter what, even the really big lessons. And that's one thing I'm aiming for with Witty, Trouble, and Giannis. So
right, because even as adults, we're still learning things all the time.
Yeah.
For me, that's the whole point of this podcast that I do is that, with so many people that work anywhere in the entertainment realm, voice acting, animating, writing, whatever the case it is, they've always got their own experiences that they can share that, someone who's currently seeking their own path in whatever it is right now, they may be able to get a start in it, but, they may be blindsided by an experience that one other person has already had, that might have already talked about it on this show. So for me, I love to learn. I've been craving trying to go back into college at some point because I enjoy mechanical engineering, so I want to try to build things. I just have trouble right now because my GPA wasn't exactly stellar when I got out of high school or community college for that matter. So it's, for me, I love to learn, and I always try to find the best opportunities I can to learn about it. And for me, when it comes to, my pursuit in voiceover, that's part of why I've had voice actors talk about their experiences on the show, because that's informative to me, but it's also informative to other people who are trying to do things when it comes to voiceover. Now, I've had you, Fable, and Katie as animators talking about their experiences in animation and art. I have had a few other artists like Mama Luigi, Posh, and WikiWolf when it came to talking about moderation and fan communities a while back. and they're all artists, fantastic artists at that. And they've talked about some of their work in that regard too. So for me, learning is a very wonderful experience to have. Like even just fixing my car, watching a YouTube video on how to fix this car, a great thing when I finally get to finishing this fix.
Yeah, and that's another thing I want to focus on with it too, is learning not just magic itself, but magic that is all around the world. Like,
Yeah.
I really, 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 really want to show people the different forms of magic and mythology that this world has itself, has so much of. Because a lot of people don't even realize that. But I also want to make sure that's accurate.
Right.
I want to make sure it's accurate as ever. Like, I'm still learning more about Filipino mythology, Tagalog mythology, a bit more of Spanish stories. Trying to learn more of that and different types of magic as well, along with learning where magic came from, and even learning a bit more dark magic for House of the Wickeds, stuff like that, because that's always another joy. Just, that is way too much anime here right there. And that's joy, that is because you're still learning while making something that you want other people to learn from too.
Yeah. For me, that's also an amazing thing about seeing so many people who have worked on. They have one project in common, at least in terms of their resume. But you see, what other things they're involved with, and then their own things that they do. Mama Luigi's going to talk with our other podcast group. I think this upcoming week, about her webcomic, and I'm looking forward to learning a little bit about that because Mama Luigi's art is also very very good art. I love to look at it. I don't know if Posh has done anything. I know Wiki does a lot of art. I just don't know if they have any narratives project in mind. But we've also talked with others who have narratives that they've talked about, and I want to learn more about those too. But when I start to look at all these different things, like Kennedy's Magus Elgar, Jun Yoon was a voice in the Leviathan Chronicles, and I got heavily into that. It's so many different visions are just so compelling, so fun to look at, and some of them are just not my taste, but it's definitely there for so many other people who are into that kind of thing. Which is, I think, ultimately the great thing when it comes to art at all, which obviously animation does fall under that, is there's just so many different styles out there. It's basically impossible to not find something you can enjoy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You've already talked about some of your big inspirations. What did you say that French film was called?
Sylvain Chomet, and then another big inspiration of mine was Motor City by Chris Pernowski, and of course a lot of stuff Gendy Tartakovsky has done too. Guillermo del Toro, while being more into live action, has been a huge asset into the animation community and world too.
Really?
If you have not seen his Hellboy films, I suggest you do, especially his animated ones. They are the bomb.
He did do the Hellboy movies, huh?
Yeah, he did, and the Hellboy animated ones as well.
I didn't know there was animated ones.
He then also produced Jorge Gutierrez's Book of Life, so yeah. And he also was the one that made the Troll Hunter series too. The Troll Hunter, Merlin, and Abalon.
Huh. Damn, I've seen a few of his movies, and they were all really interesting movies to watch. Like, the one that stands out to me the most is Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh yeah, Pan's Labyrinth is the fucking bomb. Shape of Water, that's also another fucking bomb.
Yeah.
I just love all of his stuff. I love how he does his colors, how he does the story, and how he does the villains and characters in it as well.
I'll tell you one thing that... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go on ahead, so.
Well, I was, my only comment was going to be Lars von Trier. That... if you've seen... Oh, crap, I already forgot the name of that movie. He's made some weird movies. Like, the first time I've ever seen any of his movies, it was this movie with Kirsten Dunst, and it was something about she was getting married, but her sister was there.
Wait, I know which one you're talking about. I know.
Yeah.
Those films he's made. Yeah. Everyone has their different tastes, but once you go into more into his other films, and Stuff I cannot say right now because we're on public, and I don't think you want YouTube to cancel you off.
Just getting started. But yeah, that's the one movie I've seen of his so far, and I'm just like, I
I
only went
suggest
to
you keep it at that way.
yeah, I only went to see that movie because this friend of mine that was still in my neighborhood at the time, they invited me to go along, and I'm like, okay, I'm down for trying something new. This friend of mine was I don't know if still is a huge fan of Lars von Trier, and they said they loved it so much because his movies are. They described it as they love the movies because it always makes them so like fascinatingly sick or like happily sick, something like that. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that I'm not gonna lie, that actually is the best description of those films. If
Yeah.
you like being happily sick or just sick.
Yeah, it's weird. And for me, that was just like it's the way the story went and that it at the halfway point, total tonal shift from like family drama of not sure how to handle the whole situation, especially with all the little things that are building up, to suddenly the planet coming to smash your planet. Like, what the hell? And
Hmm.
it's the same thing that happened to me with From Dusk to Dawn.
Oh yeah.
That movie, it was like so tense, so like rich in the drama and the tense atmosphere.
The one that Tarantino made, right?
Yeah, and then it gets to the Mexico club. I'm like, okay, this is probably just gonna end in some sort of like semi badass like bar fight, and they all just like the criminals get to live in their Wild West or whatever, while everybody gets to go back, maybe a little battered, but still alive in the end. No,
Nope.
it goes from that total like actual drama to, oh, we're just slaughtering vampires now.
Yep.
Huh? And it works for some people. It's just not my taste, but hey, you do you.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Tarantino stuff, even though I should. I'm just not.
I'm fine with Tarantino stuff. Like I think he did a ninja movie at one point.
Kill Bill.
No, not Kill Bill. No.
Oh no, he definitely did do Kill Bill and Kill Bill Volume 2.
No. What I was thinking of was the movie Ninja Assassin. And I remember
No, that wasn't him.
No, I know. I remember coming out of the theater of that, and I went to see this with my uncle, and he said the movie reminded him of that Tarantino style almost, and that it was very dialogue heavy. But I think Tarantino also did Inglourious Bastards, which I loved.
Yeah, Inglourious Bastard, he did The Hateful Eight, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he did all those.
So it's like, for me, Lars von Trier doesn't work. Miyazaki does. Tarantino's kind of hit and miss in some cases. It's like we all have our tastes, and I love, like I said, we love Miyazaki. Even though we know the stories of how it is to work with him, so we just kind of hope we don't have to. Whereas we hear of other people like John C. Kay and hope we never meet them. And hope they get some help.
No, I don't think they should. I just kind of want them to burn. That's my own opinion.
But then it comes to the thing of like Lars von Trier. I'm not a fan, but so many other people are. It's not my place to judge them for enjoying his work when they enjoy it. Because just because it's not my thing, there's no reason to rally to take him off the screens or anything. It's just it is his vision, and he put it out there, and that's the part that I do enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And so with so many artists and animators, they all have their own visions, and I love seeing so many different ones because some of them I'm definitely into, others I'm fine passing on because I know there's other people out there that enjoy the whatever the specific story is. I'm definitely interested in checking it out once there's things that I get to check out for it. So it's like whenever I can find a web comic that does catch my interest, I'd love to save it so I can come back to it later. And with so many animators, it seems that they all have their own little touches and influence on whatever the project is. that kind of stand out in their own ways. Like I had mentioned before, Fable will relegate certain shots to certain animators based on their strengths, and
Yeah.
so it's kind of interesting to see what kind of little touches they'll put into those shots that not only leave their signature on the project as a whole, but the project as a whole stands out so much more because of it.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way of saying it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I do enjoy animation. It's a shame that I haven't been able to learn much much about it up to this point, because it is so fascinating.
Well, you're learning a lot more about it now, so that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Even though it is such a tedious process, it's like I'm fine watching how it goes. Like that's kind of how Ashley ended up growing. Is she just wanted to show the process of doing cleanup.
Yeah.
Not even the animation itself, just helping them to look a little smoother or a little nicer.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how they grew, and just showing the process. It looks very time consuming, but I'm sure so many of these artists, if not all of them, really actually enjoy the process of animation.
Yeah, I definitely do. It's time consuming, but the what you put into it and what you want to get out of it is so satisfying and so much. And not so much in the joy of it. I know that animation is hard, but that nothing is stopping me from doing it either. Because I still want to do it no matter what.
Right. And everybody has what the things that they love to do. I like to work on cars, but I also like to paint Warhammer miniatures.
Yeah.
It's for I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but whenever I'm doing painting these miniatures, it's almost like a state of meditation.
Yeah. In a sense, art, maybe, depending. It kind of depends on the situation, because if you're thinking of art as work, you gotta focus on it as work.
Right.
But in meditation, yeah, it gets into that as well, too.
Do you know it? At least in your experience, how often does it feel more like that meditation rather than work type of thing?
It depends. It also depends on what you're listening to and such as well. Like,
that's true.
Yeah. The good thing about art is that you can listen while also, or watching stuff too, while also working. Some people watch videos while they work. I can't. I only need to listen and have something up there. That way I won't be distracted. And that's how my love for horror podcasts came to be, because I needed to listen to something to keep me up at night or keep me on my foot so that I don't end up getting tired. And that's how I found that out. Then I'm also just a huge sucker for horror stories as well, too.
That's how I am with work, in that I'm around a lot of really loud equipment all day, so I have to wear these, noise canceling headphones all the time.
Yeah.
But I like to listen to something going on. Like I've been listening to the last podcast on the left a lot, and that's always gotten me through the day quite a lot, as well as listening to the morning radio show in my area, listening to YouTube podcasts like Warhammer 40K lore comes up all the time for me. But I don't have to sit there and watch the videos, first of all, because obviously I'll get into trouble if I'm doing that. But even when I'm home doing painting, I don't need to be watching the YouTube video. I'll just minimize the window and get to the process of painting something, or trying to do my car repairs or whatever. And it's just like, it's that nice little background touch to help me get through the day or whatever the project is, and it just feels right when I'm in the process of doing whatever it is I'm doing. I'm not sure what it is about having that background music, that kind of a podcast for you to just listen to while you're working on something that does take so much focus.
It creates your own space bubble, in a sense. Like your own space bubble, you're in the mood. And that's where art or what you're doing working on your car becomes either meditative or it helps you focus a lot too and forget about the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always such a fun thing, especially when you get to actually see the process. You get to just kind of, bullshit with them, like in the case of Ashley when she started doing cleanup for Hasbin and started streaming it. it started small and it just kind of became a chance to do the work while having fun,
Mhm.
and it worked out quite well.
Yeah,
They're having a lot of fun doing what they're doing with so many various projects, as far as I've been able to keep up. And nowadays we get to keep seeing more visions coming around, and I'm very happy to see that and continue watching where these things go.
me too.
So I guess with that, is there any kind of like final advice as we're starting to get to the end here? Is there any kind of like advice or other personal experiences you think should be shared with people, whether it's in regards to animation or just life in general?
Honestly, I'm gonna say it like this. Just see animation as a field, not a genre of storytelling for so many other genres. Because that's what it is. And recognize the um amount of time and actual energy people put into it too. Because a lot of people still don't realize that.
Hmm.
And that another thing to add is that if this is something you love and something you want to keep on going, don't give up on that. Because that's something that still is going to make you learn. And there are days where you're going to feel like it's not going to happen, but it will. It will. Not in your own destined idea, but in other ways. And that's the beauty of keeping on going to experiencing and learning too, because what you're aiming for and to achieve, everyone has their own different way of experiencing it, learning from it, and growing from it. And that's what animation is to me at best.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to a good weight of look at what the hell. I think it's a good way of looking at it.
Hey, we got a little bit of honest advice and then we got a little bit of joke sidekill on that
Yeah.
too.
You gotta have fun with these kind of things. If it was
Yeah.
all just like, okay, so you have to do this, you got to keep this in mind, it's not going to be very fun to
You
listen
gotta
to.
make it serious. You gotta make it serious. You know this. Come on. Make it Christopher Nolan style. Come on.
And I'll just end this stream with Superman killing Zod.
Yes. Not the Zack Snyder style, not slow effects, just your own style.
Yeah, I could, being able to joke around and have fun is always one of the more important things. Like even when I got to talk with Phil Toll, the guy who a lot of people say is the guy who saved Metallica, because they were on the verge of imploding on themselves at one point. I talked to them, and even with them, we still still the chance for a couple jokes, some laughs, even though we talked about some fairly heavy stuff. But then you take that in contrast to when I talked with, Grouse and Heavenly Father from the Russian Badgers crew, and suddenly you've got, these guys who are able to actually have a serious conversation while still being able to joke around, even though they're quite known for just, absolute live shit posting on the Russian Badgers videos. And I'm talking to like absurdist levels. It's amazing to see all the different ways that so many people in these different places can have fun just talking about something.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that goes back to the joy of being around Discord groups and socializing too.
Yeah. Just being able to, like, you don't even have to stream the process of doing the animation or the cleanup or whatever.
Yeah.
Just, like if you can't find something to listen to in the background, just drop into a voice call and just, passively bullshit with people while you're doing the thing.
Yeah.
Just as fun. So, yeah, I think that'll do it for this interview. I'm really glad you took the time to come on here and talk with me about all this.
Thank you so much again for inviting me. This has been such a fun interview, and we talked about so much.
Yeah, I tend to find interviews like this go on for a while with so much to share and so much to learn from.
Mhm.
So this has been a very fun experience to learn a little bit from in regards to art and animation, because, I'm sure I'll go back and listen to this again and, it'll click a little bit more for me and how these different processes work. But that's why I leave these streams up as videos to watch later on, so that anybody can come back and watch these things and still learn from it later on. And like I said, that's kind of the whole point of me doing this, is so that people who are looking for their own path in doing whatever thing, animation or voice acting, directing or writing, YouTube or Twitch, there's people that that they can just listen to, talk about their process, talk about their experience, and learn a little bit from it. And it sounds like you've had a fair few things that you've learned from in terms of what you've taken away from other projects that you've done.
One of the joy projects is that you join into something and you won't leave without learning something new.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely, as Fable has showed us, and when I talked to her, or them, rather. I don't know why I keep doing that. I feel like an idiot.
Yeah, it's all right. So
it's there immediately for me sometimes. Other times I catch myself and I'm like, ah, crap. But yeah, Fable has definitely shown where they've taken lessons away from other projects, especially with Hasbin, how they're applying it to make the current project they're on just working so much better. And now you're still doing animation for other projects currently, I assume.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah, I'm actually working right now on advancing up my animation reel, because I want to make that a little bit more smoother and a little bit more action-like in a sense, while adding in some of my own OCs and what I've been learning. I tried to do Animonthly, which is what you can do an animation once a month type of thing. That went down the drain very, very quickly. Yeah. But no matter what, just keep on pushing yourself into learning something. Don't push yourself over to the limit, but just get out of your comfort zone bit by bit.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's the important part. Bit by bit, even if it's only one step. You don't want to overwhelm yourself.
One step is better than no step.
Yeah. So, yeah, this was definitely a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone who came. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, I have Morgane's Twitter posted in the description of this stream/video. Give them a follow. They're definitely worth checking out what new content they come out with, new drawings, new updates on what they're doing. Load of fun. I enjoy seeing Morgane showing up in quite a few places that I've already stepped around to. And there's definitely more that I'm looking forward to after seeing some of this art myself. Yep. And then there's also the Gab Hominem Twitter that has finally been set up a couple weeks ago. Give that a follow if you want to see more people from different areas of the entertainment realm that you want to learn from. Quite often we have voice actors with so many different experiences. It's insane. And then there's also other people who are sound designers I've talked with. I'm hoping to have more directors on soon. And I'm actually going to be able to get to talk with another animator in just a couple of weeks.
Nice.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with the name. Fuck. How was it pronounced?
The animator, the name fuck? I do not know. No, fuck.
It's here somewhere. Oh, wait. There it is. Fuijing Ling.
Fuijing Ling.
Malaysian, I believe, animator.
Which one?
Fuijing Ling. Fuijing Ling.
Oh no, I do know them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually pronounced Pui.
Oh, Pui Ling. Okay.
Yeah. We and I have also worked on Hazbin Hotel together, and they're amazing. They've also done work on Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, that's
the
the main thing that. I'm sorry. What was the one after Teenage?
Monkey King Lego ones.
Oh, geez.
They worked on that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was for me. It was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ones that caught my attention. I'm like, okay, that's gonna be a fun one to see some experiences about, because I've already, as I stated before, I'm not so worried about the Hasbin angle anymore. It'll at this point it'll just be, if you happen to have worked on Hasbin, cool. But I think I've already pushed that angle enough. More experiences from other things will be amazing to have more talks about. But you've definitely had your own experiences in various other projects outside of Hasbin, and you're still learning.
Always still gonna learn. That's never gonna stop.
Oh no, Yeah. So that's always a good thing. So I'm hoping to be able to make sure that stays locked in, barring any special circumstances that come to get in the way of that. But hopefully we'll see that through in a couple of weeks. But yeah, keep an eye on new updates for that. See who else we get to come onto the show, and whenever we do this every other weekend rather. So keep an eye on all of it. Follow Morgane. Follow the show and the hosts. And hopefully we can see you guys all again in just a couple of weeks. You guys all